We're recording. You
Oh,
dork.
we're recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's been
Still ain't
it's been
got
a while.
this shit
It's been about a
down.
week and a half since we've recorded anything, so we're gonna get back into the swing of things here.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on.
Today, before we jump into the book, is there anything you want to talk about or anything, or do you want to just hop
Just
right
general?
into the book? Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So we had a holiday, right? What
Mhm.
was the holiday that we didn't? Oh, Easter. So we didn't put one out on Easter.
We didn't pull one out on Easter.
Last one was episode 8. So we're doing good there. This will be episode 9. Hopefully they liked Grandpa's favorite condiment. Kind of started to lag out, or I don't know, start to screw up there right when his
We got the
punchline hit.
important part.
But we got it, yeah.
Yeah,
It
we
was
got
pretty
that.
funny. It pretty much shut that whole place down.
Brought the
That was
house
pretty
down.
good. So last week we were up in Montana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot going on the last weekend. So we put the house up for sale,
Mm-hmm.
and we put it on MLS on Thursday. I finished the baseboard trim in the kitchen about 11:30 at night on Thursday night,
Oh my gosh! You were
and
up
we
that late?
had over in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we had over 32 showings, around 32.
It's crazy.
And then on Monday, we had 15 offers. So this housing market's crazy. But so we've been packing and everything. Places under contract. And with that, we are going to be, after today, we're going to do what? 3-4 episodes to try and have some back to top.
Yeah, at least 3.
If we can, at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be cutting off every half hour, and then we'll put out our episodes like we've been trying to do every Sunday, trying to keep them at a half hour. So after episode 9, 10, 11, maybe 12, we'll be stinking because we'll have the same clothes on, right?
Yeah.
But we've been trying to get into this book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you did some really good notes. Last time we tried to get into it, we weren't doing very good.
Yeah, we're really bad about, or at least
Prep?
I'm really bad about not prepping, but just imagining things and then putting those things into words.
Well, there's so much good stuff. This is a good book, and we'll get into it. But I think a big part of it is the mission we're on, right, is good.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure we do good by these books and everything. So it's really a lot to try and put into a half hour, a simple discussion. It's pretty deep stuff when you really think about it.
Especially with how much of it might pertain to you and your childhood. It's
Right.
stuff that you want to talk about and just keep going on and on about.
Yeah, and I'm curious what your thoughts are as we go through this stuff, and you're like, oh, my dad screwed up because of this.
I mean, this, even just in this first chapter, he's already talking or explaining so much, and that with you and your dad, the relationship you had, and how a lot of the things,
The atmosphere.
the atmosphere you grew up in, and how you might have gotten lucky, and you didn't end up worse in the,
I think so. I think there was plenty of opportunities to go sideways. My sister didn't, she ended up coping with things in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And she got into drugs and stuff like that. I think what Mom said in her interview, it sounded like she was doing good until the rape, which I couldn't even remember. I didn't remember. Some things I think you just want to bury.
Yeah.
And luckily I wasn't around by then, because then I'd probably been in prison because I would have hunted somebody down.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's what a
Because,
good brother does, though.
I was down in college and didn't realize how much was going on.
Yeah, because even you got out and you escaped, but how much longer were your mom and your sister going through that when you were out of the house?
Yeah, well, we'll
Scary
talk about
stuff,
that
man.
maybe later.
Yeah.
Why don't you kick us off on the book, though?
So the first thing, he doesn't have chapter names, right? So in the first chapter,
Just chapter 1, I don't remember. Try not to make a lot of noise here. Making sense of the world.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there is.
Well, chapter 1, he jumps right into this story with a patient he used to have. Bruce D. Perry is his name. And he talks about a patient that he used to have suffering from PTSD. He was in the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because back in the day, they really did not have as much research on any of these topics as what we do now. So really, the guy thought he was just completely crazy. He thought he was going insane.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, you're right.
Mhm. Yeah, because we didn't have the research. We didn't know what PTSD was. We didn't know what was going through the guy's head. But Bruce D. Perry was like a philosopher in the topic, so he was one of the first to really start diving into it.
Well, he ended up, the guy I think who's helped write the book, right? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah,
Bruce Perry?
Bruce Perry.
Dr.
and
Bruce
Oprah.
Perry. He started out, I believe, as a brain scientist or some sort of doctor or science, and then he got into clinical like psychology. So he knew the medical development of the brain, right?
Mhm.
And then he got into psychological development
Mhm.
and things like that, and then how he really was able to figure out how the brain is affected and from infantry on up. And so it's pretty amazing. You know, when you talk about the guy that had PTSD and he was in Vietnam and, you know, getting shot at and shelled and all stuff. And so his brain was kind of reprogrammed, you know, maybe he wasn't like that before, but it was reprogrammed to react in a certain way when just a sound occurred, right?
Yeah, I could even read this quote out if you want me to. But it says, Mike was the guy's name. His brain, quoted, his brain adapted to a continuous threat. His body and his brain become oversensitive and overreactive to any threat-related signals from the world. Back then, his brain made a connection, basically a specialized form of memory between the sounds of gunfire and shelling, the need to activate an extreme survival response.
And you know, my father-in-law, Dave, kind of my adopted dad as well, he was in Vietnam and he used to jump out of helicopters. He was infantry, and he always said that he always looked for a helicopter that was leaking something because he knew it had something to leak. So he was like, well, it might have some oil or gas in it. You know, the other ones aren't leaking, so maybe they're not as well off. But he still, you know, he doesn't like to be around crowds. He likes to keep his back to the wall. He likes to be aware of what's going on. And where he lives up there in Montana, he'd rather just stay away from people and be on his own, which I don't blame him one bit.
Yeah.
Who knows how this world is going, but he's a good guy, and he's going to help us out when we move up there. So we're selling the house, we're moving back up there, right? Where we're from before we moved here and had you and Olivia. But his original adaptive and protective memory is still there, right? So he was out with his girlfriend, right? And this situation that, you know, caused him to end up getting divorced and just struggling in life, you know, and stuff. And then he found a girl, they like each other, and they're going down the street, and here's what sounds like a gunshot, but it's a motorcycle. And he jumps on in between two cars onto the ground instinctively, you know, not even realizing that he's reacted like that, because your body reacts before the brain even starts to comprehend.
Yeah, it's as if he completely blacked out.
And when she tried to help him and didn't know what was going on, he struck her. You know, so he's in defense mode. And, you know, that kind of stuff is, like my grandfather was World War II, you know, from the previous video. He was in the 28th Infantry, and he saw things he wouldn't even talk about. So, but when he came back home, plane going overhead, he was on the ground. Would wake up screaming. I mean, he saw some pretty crazy stuff. So, you know, war can mess a lot of people up. So we transition all that and PTSD, but how the brain is developed. and I like your notes here.
Yeah.
He talks about the brain development. I'll let you kind of run with that because
Yeah.
you got some good notes here.
Because essentially, there's three. I only have notes now for two of the different sections of the brain here for some reason, but essentially the two important pieces is the cortex, which is the upper part of your brain, which is in charge of the creative stuff, like language, what we value, time, all the stuff that takes thought to come out,
Right.
And as opposed to the brainstem, which is the lower part of your brain, which is more natural, it's the more instinctual part of your brain. He even called it the reptilian brain. Because all it is instinct and how to survival instincts, how to keep yourself alive.
Right, and so he's talking about how the brain develops, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got the brainstem, which is, he does a upside down triangle. So, and the brainstem is on the bottom. And then the other two areas is, I don't know if I can pronounce this,
Oh, no.
Diencephalon, something. Then limbic and then cortex. But like you said, the brainstem is first developing temperature, respiration, cardiac, things that you don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just controlling. It's making that happen so that you can stay alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one is your arousal, sleep, appetite, movement. So like muscle memory, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
These and then the next, the limbic is like reward, memory, bonding, emotions develop, and then your cortex, your creativity, your thinking, language, values, time, hope. So those things are developing later. So we talk about this stuff, and the brainstem is affected by the atmosphere that you grow up in.
Yeah, it's something you just said right there. The other stages of the brain are developed later. The brainstem comes first, so that leads us into the next point, which is your earliest experiences have the biggest impact on your life. So, like, at a young age, people were always thinking, like, oh, he's just a kid, he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
Stuff like that. But as a young child, all you have is that brainstem, so all you have is your instincts and, like...
Well, hopefully you got a little brain as a child. But you're talking as an infant or even in the womb?
A fetus, yeah. He goes as far to say you're even experiencing the world as a fetus inside your mother's womb.
So let's take that, what I went through. So mom shared, living in California with these people, being locked in a closet, all these different things. So she's stressed. She's trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
There's no food, so she's stealing food from a grocery store. So my years from before birth, as a fetus, infant,
Even as a
first
fetus,
grade,
yeah.
all that stuff. Whatever he did to make me start crying and throw up, because she was visiting with somebody and he was so mental she couldn't have friends.
Yeah.
So what did that do to me, right?
Yeah. How did your brain evolve as opposed to...
And like you
anybody
said,
else's?
how did I become so toxic? Because I'm toxic to you, right? But there's a quote in here that there was no time for nurturing. So, and that's something I think Mom was going through, is she was trying to survive. And there was a long time there when, like after I went to college and stuff, that I was just angry with her. Because I think in all that too, she's codependent. She didn't get out. Yeah, it was generational where people didn't leave and the cops didn't pursue domestic violence and stuff like that.
Even
Like,
then, when we were interviewing her, she got out a couple times.
yeah, but she didn't want to tell the whole truth. She should have got the fuck out and never gone back. Or, I mean, there was a time when I wanted to shoot him because I was sick of it.
Yeah, you told me that story.
I was gonna, and she freaked out, right? I was like, he's coming home. Okay, so what? I got the hunting rifle out. I'm ready. 12 years old, right? Whatever. I don't care. Put a 12-year-old in prison, whatever, for trying to just want to sleep through the night. So...
Oh, man. That's rough, man.
It is, you wake up as a kid, dealing with that crap, and you got, there's so many different things. There's ACOA, adult children of alcoholics, and I'm all over the place, but Did I ever tell you that story? I'll have to tell you that story. Maybe we'll save it for the next episode.
Yeah, save something.
Don't let me forget. Write it down. So here I am, where was I going?
So, can I ask you this?
Yes.
How do you feel about, because there's a quote, he was talking about how, like, children with abusive parents, specifically children with abusive fathers that get beat and hit and all of this, they tend to see all men, as threatening throughout their life.
I think for me, not necessarily men. I mean, for me, it's confrontation. So whenever there's confrontation, I think this has to do with my experience with my mom. So if he was getting confrontational or just being narcissistic or whatever, I would say that the way I react is because the way she reacted. She would get nervous and try and please him and everything. And they talk about becoming a people pleaser and stuff like this, right, in this book, and trying not to end up getting beat again.
Yeah.
So for me, confrontation is a tense situation. So I tend to start to shake. I tend to start to get the tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, fighting, I was like, my dad taught me how to fight. I'm not a big guy or anything, so he taught me how to fight dirty. Right? We've experienced that.
Yeah.
Gotta do what you gotta do, right?
A couple times,
Yeah. So, but I mean, don't take that. We weren't like fighting for real. We were just messing around. But then I was getting hurt because he's turning out to be a strong little dude, and so I was like, well, I had to get dirty on him. Here, take this.
Punch me in the balls.
And you were rolling. I was like, well, sorry, but I'm not hurting anymore. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange because the way you're explaining what you go through right now, I think I'm somehow the exact same way. I don't know if it transfers.
Well, I think it's, hopefully I didn't translate what I experienced and my tense moments and way I handled things to you, because I didn't want that. I didn't want to be critical. I didn't want to put you in a situation where there was no win or those narcissistic things. I don't want
to that same extent, but like when I was dating she who will not be named, whenever there was confrontation between the two of us, the same thing would happen. Where like I wouldn't want to deal with it. I kind of just get tunnel vision, and I'd instantly just be like, okay, you win, you're right. Or maybe that's just part of dating in general.
Maybe you and I need to stand up for ourselves better.
Yeah, maybe we're just a couple of pussies.
Speak for yourself. That's not me, but I think, like being married and everything, and you have, marriage isn't easy no matter what, and it's, probably over 50% of marriages, end in divorce and stuff, but you got to decide what you are willing to put up with. You got to classify the person before and get out when you can, before you sign some paper or whatever, or you're in some cohabitation set up there and, married by the courts or whatever. Yeah. But, we're getting way off there. We got a lot of topics we can talk about here. We could write them down and say, okay, we can visit this later. Mm-hmm. But as far as the book, and Mom and what it did to me, hopefully it ain't translated to you. And that's why a big part of it is when I started taking on the camping trips, just you and I, as a father-son time. That's why I didn't move up when I had opportunities to grow in my career with Walmart or, and stuff like that, or move. I didn't want to move. Your mom had a better experience, staying in the same place, most of her life. So you and Olivia both have gotten to be in the same school system, same home, and all that kind of thing, which I think it makes a big difference. But then there's people that move around and stuff. So I moved around a lot. So I find myself, it's easier to talk to people. But I don't have a lot of close friends.
Because you had to go around and make new friends.
I didn't ever really have a close friend through my life. There's one guy, Brian, we started in junior high and through high school, and that was because of the church. Maybe it was even more high school than junior high. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I ended up going to a church college because that's where everybody was going, which was probably good, you know. So the church, and there's people in the church and things like that, and I think Mom tried to get me around some good influences that probably kept me from going down some other rabbit hole, you know. But when we talk about this book, all Mom's energy went to keeping her head above water and surviving. And then what it was doing to me, she probably wasn't aware of. You know, like you said, this stuff and development, mental illness, is probably just getting more.
I mean, yeah, she probably
easier to
wasn't
talk
thinking.
about. A lot of people still don't talk about it. You know, the older generations and stuff don't want to talk about it. You know, you suck it up, and how dare you, you know, share your feelings.
Yeah.
Which is not easy either, right?
I mean, that even more so back then than it is today. Men especially probably were looked down upon for being emotional and having emotions.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
Buttercup. What else you want to talk about here, man? I mean, we're all over the place. Hopefully people start getting involved and share, if they want to share their life stories. There's a guy who's a good friend, Robert from work. He's since changed house, but he has a really good story, you know, about his growing up and stuff he went through and getting kicked out of the house by his mother and stuff. And I mean, I guess what is really hard, when I worked for Walmart and I was asset protection, and you got these parents coming in and stealing and whatnot, and then they got their kids with them. So you're basically programming a kid to be bad.
Okay.
And I hate to say it, you know, it was very sad, but I liked when the police filed child abuse charges against parents that used their kids to steal, because they would put the stuff underneath their infant in the stroller, or have the kids sitting on the stuff in the shopping cart. I mean, I was like, really, you know, and you know. Those were tough situations, and it was different, you know, if you had people stealing food and stuff to survive because they were struggling and whatnot, that was different. That's when, hey, let's help them out, let's help buy this stuff for them. Yeah, there's, you know, situation where you got to follow through because you got a job to do, but then you can help them too.
Yeah.
And, but then somebody, like some kid, say you were stealing a Xbox controller, that's not a real need.
Straight to jail. Get out of here.
Yep. Book 'em.
Yeah, there's definitely more important things in life.
That's a
than
perceiving.
Xbox.
So you got, when it comes to that kind of stuff, so you got three reasons, you know. There's a real need, you know, food, clothing, shelter, stuff like that. You know, so that's a kind of whether you're forced into that situation or not. There's a perceived need, you know, I need this flashlight, or I don't know, whatever it might be. You know, I perceive need, which you really don't. It's not a survival item. And then there's opportunity. And when it comes to theft, you can't control the perceived need or the real needs, but you can control the opportunities. That's so when you go to Walmart, everything's locked up.
Yeah.
So you're trying to control those opportunities.
Freaking like $8 USBs.
We're going to Billings, Montana, Walmart, and they got to lock up $7 flash drives. I'm like, yeah, this is getting out of hand.
Pretty much everything in
pretty much everything's
section.
locked up or in a case.
It's crazy. I mean, if you go to stores around here, the diapers are locked up.
Well, those are real needs, though, right? You got to take care of your child. You know, formula is huge, but you know, if these people are in situations, you know, and this is a whole nother topic we could get on as far as theft and asset
Do you
protection
think
and
being
stuff like that.
through asset protection did anything to your mental health in a good or
It
better?
was a tough job to be in, because what did I just say? I would have to confront people, right? And I was like shaking like a mudder. You know, I'm like, how's this going to go down? And, you know, I hate confrontation. I'm a lover, not a fighter, and just that kind of just turned into suck it up, you know, do your job. It was probably a growing experience, growing time. 12 years of that. It was a very, but I was good at it too. I think there's a part of it, where because of the things I've been through, that I want to try and help people.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I went to college, I was going for theology and youth ministry, and then I changed over to like adolescent development, some of that psychology, stuff. And I wanted to help kids. I worked at a youth shelter for, kids that were in tough situations,
Really?
whether it's their own or they made some bad decisions of their own or their home. They were in a tough situation.
I didn't even know that.
I got burnt out mentally, not physically, but it just never ends. And you're like, man, I can't do this no more.
You have to have a strong stomach for that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, last time I was like, I'm done, as I pulled over on the road going home and started bawling. I was like, these kids are being abused, or, there was a kid brought into the shelter. His mom was in the hospital or something. The boyfriend was in jail. The baby was in the hospital, had been broken bones. And so we had this kid, mom's drugs and stuff. And so we have this kid in our shelter. We're not supposed to have kids this young. And but he's sitting on my knees and he's mad. And mom said she wasn't going to do drugs anymore, stuff. And the things I had learned, I was like, let it out, active listening, things like that is like, you have the right to be upset and stuff like that, yell, whatever you need to do, get it out. And you're like, so driving home, pulled over, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, it would be painful to have to go through that. I can't imagine having to sit there and hear somebody's story and have
to try and help these, I don't think I could do that job now. I mean, I'm just too much of a crybaby. I'm very emotional. I don't know what my brain chemistry is like. I cry at commercials. Happy.
You cried on that episode with Olivia.
Yeah, I'm a baby. You got me bawling now because I'm thinking about it.
It looks like you might start going now.
Shut up. I am. No, my nose is running.
Yeah, but like
we got our DBToxic Kleenex here.
It's just, what do you do? It's always an awkward position when you see somebody going through something. Like back when I lived with my friend Alfredo, his cousin passed away, and his cousin was his best friend. And it's just rough. Helping anybody through anything, all you can really do is sit there and listen and help them, let them get it out. Because you're not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychiatrist.
No, we're not professionals in any manner.
None of you, unless, if you are a psychiatrist.
Hopefully there's some professionals that start getting into this thing, right?
Yeah.
That can help put in their 2 cents, We're not asking for free, free service, but we're just asking for, whatever pertains to what we're talking about.
Yeah,
if they want to talk,
that'd be great. Professionals on here. And
we got a whole 17 subscribers. Woo!
Yeah, woo.
Kicking ass.
Our first episode has almost it has over 50 views.
Our first one?
Yeah.
It has like almost 100.
Almost 100?
It's been going, what, 2 months?
Yeah, we're going
Is
big
that
time,
good?
Guys. We're going big time.
Yeah, well, they've kind of dwindled down since then. But these topics aren't always funny.
No.
Sometimes we have some good little one-liners, maybe, or some little jokes or whatever. And
it's a niche. It's a niche.
Yeah, and maybe it's too serious. Tried to throw Grandpa in there as a comic relief. He was a great guy, but you could see the difference between Grandpa and Grandma. She's so stoic, and she was a backseat driver, never drove a day in her life, but always bitching at him on how to drive. And then
you're talking about your great grandma, not the grandma that
my
was
grandma.
Oh,
your
yeah,
great grandma.
My great grandma.
Yeah, the one that was on the video. And then, but he just put up with a lot of crap,
Yeah.
And just, I guess that's the way it was. And then you decide, okay, what are you going to do? Like I was saying, there's a lot of decisions that are made to keep you guys more on a more solid foundation.
And it worked out. I'm doing pretty good.
You're
I'd
doing
like
all
to
right.
think, for the most part, I'd like to hope my mental state.
I still
is
try to
doing pretty good.
bother you maybe too much, and you and you get bitchy.
Yeah.
Kind of rude.
Yeah.
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 You're kind of rude too.
You're an ass.
You're toxic, Dad.
But why do I tell you these things? I still don't believe you have a 401k because you won't prove it.
What do you mean? You want me to walk up to you with the...
I want you to show
it's
me
called?
your check stub or online check stub and say, see, this is what they take
I'm
out of
glad
my...
you're doing this on camera now so people can see how absolutely crazy you are.
Yes.
Just because I won't
And now
show
I
you.
hope they reach out and say, come on, Noah, prove it.
Okay, I'm going to prove it. I'll prove it. I'll prove it. I'll prove it.
You pulling it up on your computer right now?
Can you do that? Can I go
Your
to
check
American
stubs? Don't tell them where you
dox
work.
myself. Nah, there's just like 6. They won't be able to.
They'll find you in a second. Let's go on with this. You can keep looking. Brainstem development. So, brainstems, I'm in this crazy high stress survival, so that is going down to me. Then when I am born, things are nuts there, so she's stealing food from the grocery store to feed me, things like that. He's heading down to Tijuana. Who knows what's going on there. Come home, get beaten. She didn't have money, all that. And then, so I grow up in that. So my brainstem, everything's tense. So, and then what else do I get from this relationship? We'll get into it more, I think, in other chapters.
Well, we're about half an hour in.
Yeah, and we'll maybe jump into the next one. Yeah, let's call it here, and then we'll jump into the next one. All right?
Do an actual outro, and then we'll just...
We're going to do an out. Should I fade to black again? Okay, guys, we'll see you next Sunday.
Wait. Okay, yeah. Bye, everybody.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.
I'll be back. Okay.